then if you're joining live, the thumbnail you're probably seeing. But when you create a live stream in the app, and I don't like how this works, but when you create a live stream in the app, you have to take a picture, and that's arguably probably the thumbnail that you saw when clicking on this if you're watching live. But you can change it later, and I had made a thumbnail, which if you're watching this later is the thumbnail that you will see, but it was on my desktop, and so I saved this live stream on my phone, as you have to do, then I went back to my computer, and I was like, I'll change it from unlisted to public, and I'll add the photo. And I went and I added the photo, but I didn't change it to public, and so I just streamed for like 5 minutes on an unlisted video that no one could see, and that defeats the purpose of a live stream in many ways. So if you're just joining, hello, because I'm just joining as well, and let me know if my microphone isn't working so that I don't waste everyone's time more than I already will tonight. But what we're talking about tonight is clients. And client, I don't want to say we're talking about client problems, but that's sort of what prompted this. And I had a stressful couple weeks. And as a disclaimer, I try to be very open on this channel, very authentic, very transparent. But in this case, I'm going to withdraw the names. And a super sleuth could probably pretty quickly figure out who my clients are right now. But I'm going to leave this ambiguous for the time being. But I have 2 clients right now. I have had one since a little bit before the pandemic. We did one project, and then they started doing some virtual stuff that we started shooting for in the pandemic, and it's been awesome. And then about 6 months in the pandemic, I found a new client, or a new client found me through work I had done. Mike is scratchy. Oh no. Rats, come on. Thanks for the feedback. Trying here. I don't know if this is any better. Adjusted it a little bit. But I've had one client for all through the pandemic. I had another client that I found about 6 months into the pandemic. And then I had a client for years that ghosted me. I did 2 projects for them in the pandemic. And admittedly, one of them, nope, it's still bad. It's still really bad. Rats. Can I just unplug this and go trust the iPhone? That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stay right here. And I hope that this is better, and we're just gonna ditch the deity tonight altogether. Because we're having problems. I've made a lot of mistakes with tonight's stream. Thank you for your patience. But so I have 2 clients, and then one of them ghosted me completely. Grant, thanks, Dane. And so Dane has shot for my 2 clients that I have right now. Fantastic. Sorry to hear that, deity. Thanks for coming to play, but not tonight. So I had a new client opportunity come up. I had this potential client. I had a couple meetings with them. We were figuring out what the video was going to look like, what it was going to be like. And it put me in this weird place because after a couple of these meetings, let me step back for 1 second. When I'm accepting new meetings, when I'm thinking about having new clients, there's always the desire to grow, to do something a little bigger. You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over forever. And so each time I get a new client, I'm looking for the opportunities to try stuff I haven't tried before, to take safe risks, to make 20% of the project a bit of a stretch so that it can be something that takes me to the next level. Because if I just did the same talking head edit every single time, I would do the same talking head edit for the rest of time. And I don't want to do that. And this was the situation where I had, they didn't want any like talking head interview stuff. And that is all that I do. That is 90% of what I do is interview driven video. And as I've talked recently about like growing my company and relying on other people, I admit there's a lot of things I'm not good at, or maybe not good at, but there's a lot of things that I am not the best at. And lighting, I like lighting, but I think a lot of people are better at lighting than I am. DP in general, I think there's elements of actual producing where I don't thrive. But what I'm really good at, I gotta stop hitting the table, that shakes the camera. What I'm really good at is conducting interviews and then taking that footage from the interviews and assembling gold. And I don't know anyone that I trust more than myself to do that and do it really well. And so that, I don't want it to be my bread and butter. I want to do projects that aren't just talking head videos and, conduct an interview and find a story in it later. In spite of how good I am for that, if you know who to hire for the things you need help with. Yeah, that's exactly what I've come to do, is to hire people. And Dane, if you don't know Dane and you're in this video, Dane I owe a whole bunch of my career to, because he gave me my first opportunities. But Dane is somebody that lately, when I have something I need like slick looking B-roll, I call Dane. I call Dane because I know I can rely on him 100%. I know that he's going to be better at the B-roll than I would be. And so I have more and more people that, depending on the situation, I trust them to do something. I just got to shoot something with my buddy Kyle a couple weeks ago for one of my clients. And it involved directing and being a bit of a producer on set. But it was something where it's like, I know I could technically meet the minimum requirements for making this happen. But Kyle stepped in, and this project was amazing. And after seeing it through, I cannot imagine how it would have taken place without Kyle. And so all that is to say that I do a lot of work where I work best running interviews. Like that's a good boom reactive video, but we can also find other things. Oh, more people from St. Louis. We got some former St. Louis folks and some more current St. Louis folks. Hello, welcome. Coming to you live from the Hill tonight. So this potential client that I had didn't want a talking head video. They wanted this like dynamic, exciting, and you can see I'm talking in the past tense here to spoil the end of the story. But they wanted this exciting, dynamic, no voiceover, no anything, maybe some text on screen, this like dynamic looking sizzle reel with some footage that they didn't want to look staged, but still wanted to look really, really slick. What up, Jay? And I was excited about the project, and they were asking, like, is this something you can do? And being that I want to do stuff that stretches me, and I want to do videos like that. I want that to be something that people can come to me and I say, yeah, I got the team that can do that. And so I started to find the team that could do that, and I started finding some camera operators who I really, really like their stuff. And then I was looking at finding an editor who's better at that sizzle stuff than I am. And I found, like, I assembled this whole team, and the more I looked at it, the less that I was having anything to do with the project. But it existed in this way where I was like, I could hand this off, or I could keep it, and no one, and not really do a lot, but I would produce it. And so I would make a few $100s, maybe $1,000, but everything else would be paid to the editors and the DP and the actual people who brought this to life. And so that was my plan. And I was like, this isn't really going to be a huge thing for me personally. I'm not going to have a ton of involvement with it, but it's going to be a good project for the client. And I felt good as a producer. I know the right people. I've seen their work. I've vetted these people, and better than anyone else could go out and find some people, I have these connections. And this is part of what I've done. And the value that I bring to my clients is I can find the right people. But it turns out that they wanted to shoot when I was out of town, when I'm going to be out of town. And the more I talked to my team about it, it became so apparent that all I will do in this situation is be a burden. I will play middleman, and I'm going to have these conversations directly with the client and then try to relay everything to my people. And finally, it was a strange interaction, but I had to email my potential client and say, I think the best thing for you is to work direct with these people and not work with me. Just deal me out. And their initial reaction was they apologized that they had responded slowly to an email. Like, no, I'm not doing this because you messed up. I'm not trying to pass you. If you messed up, I wouldn't pass you along to people that I like. But it wasn't altruism. I'm not being pompous and saying, well, and I did the right thing, but no audio now?
Come on. This is crazy. Okay. I'm going to hope that it clicks back on. Okay, thank you. I've dealt with, this is my second microphone solution and my third live stream tonight trying to get this to work. If you just hit the mute button, that's fine. Thank you, Jay. You are my, you're my location sound mixer. You give me that thumbs down if something goes wrong. But all that was to say, I handed this client off, and there's this weird thing because it was like, wait, what? Like, everyone felt weird about it, but the more I looked at it, it was the right move of like, these people shoot that style of video, they edit that style of video. I would have hired them anyway. Why insert myself? And with this particular institution, I was going to have these meetings where I'm trying to learn about the institution. It's a school. I can say that. It's a school. And the person who is in charge of the team I wanted to hand it off to, their daughter had just graduated from the school. I didn't know that. And they have other families been to the school. Like they know the school so well. And so it became even more apparent that rather than me play middleman to try to like get the ethos of this project and inform this guy to run his team appropriately, it's like, no, you know this place. I'm just going to be in the way here. Deal me out. And so I did. And so that was problem one of clients this week of I have found someone better for you than I am. And I don't think this is a good opportunity for me to try to grow at all through it because I can't be there physically for the shoot because I'm not going to be in town. And the people I would hire would be better at it. And they have a better understanding already. So I still have 2 clients currently, and I did not add a third for the time being. But one of these 2 clients is giving me an interesting problem. And it's the best problem you could ever have. Problem's not even the right word. But we function in a way where there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of open projects, and there's a lot of leapfrogging, and we work on one thing like, oh wait, hang on that, we'll do this. So I try to build these projects independently, but it's difficult because a lot of this stuff flows together and we work on the same assets for multiple videos. And so it's difficult to draw those distinctions and to be paid properly. And that being paid properly has nothing to do with them. They've never balked at an invoice. And I'm sure there's a lesson here that some people would say of like, oh, if they're not complaining about your prices, then you should probably raise them. And I don't feel good about that. That's not how I like to work. My rates make me feel good for the amount of work that I do with the experience that I have and the amount of gear that I have. I feel good about my rate. And so if I want to sell somebody more stuff, I will come up with more projects to sell them. I will not raise the costs on the existing projects. But we've got a few things coming up that are bigger than they've been before. And the situation that we had, and actually Dane helped me out huge on this one. We had a shoot that was scheduled here in St. Louis, and then things got weird and confusing with the people we were trying to work with. And it turns out that for this client, they were like, hey, this is going to be better if we've got a headquarters in Florida. If we just shoot this in Florida instead, that'd be easier. And I'm sitting here looking at like my original budget to bring like 2 people out and edit this footage together was like $6 or $7 grand. And now it was that $6 or $7 grand plus airfare, hotels, rental cars, renting some gear when we got there. Like it turned from like a $6 grand project into a $26,000 project by the time we were done with it. And that is not someplace where I have been comfortable of working at that kind of a project, but these people didn't balk at it. And they understood what it costs to bring teams together and do stuff. And learning that lesson the hard way was a wonderful lesson to learn. But now we're in this situation where I have more projects coming up with them. And I just had a phone call with them today and just sort of spitballing. They were like, yeah, we're going to need to go back to the Florida headquarters probably in April and in May for different things. And I'm sitting there swallowing hard and being like, I mean, each time you say we got to run down there and shoot something, that's $15,000. That's not a little, that's not me running across town and shooting a half day by myself. Like, this is arranging a crew and doing this. And it's fair, and it's what they need, it's what they want, and it's what I can do. But it having to Dane, I'm calling you, man. But it's been interesting to try to get my head to that point because I still feel bad and I'm afraid of telling them like, oh yeah, every time you do this, it's gonna cost you $15,000, $20,000. Where I know that they budget for this. Like they wouldn't just get into it recklessly. But my default for so long working with non-for-profits, working with educational institutions, um, the default has always been like, hey, we need a Super Bowl commercial, we need a 45-minute documentary, and we have $9 to get it done. And that's a stretch, but it's the sort of thing where like if we said we can do it for seven, and then we need to rent something to be like $7,200, like $7,200, there would be most of my clients would be like, okay, we can't do that. That's all we have the funding for. So let's find a different solution. And I've never had this experience before of just like, hey, not going to work. And so originally there's this thing I'm going out of town for is for this client, and I'm going down to Florida to shoot it myself. And originally we were going to try to find somebody locally to shoot it, and then my schedule opened up, and it turns out I can do it. But having that conversation of like hiring somebody locally to do it would have cost, all in with some gear rental, like 2 grand. But to fly me there, put me in a hotel for the night, and the travel, all this stuff, it quickly goes from like 2 grand to almost five. And for them, it's worth it that we don't have to interface with somebody else and explain the whole project to another camera operator down there. Like this is one that's going to be quick. It needs to be turned around really fast. Like it's going to make sense for me. If I'm going to edit it, it's going to make sense for me to shoot it. And they understood all that and had no problems with that budget, and paid it instantly before the gig is even going to be shot. So that way I can pay for the rent. Like they're great. They pay for everything on time. They don't push back on stuff. But for me, I'm learning how to, and it's not even like how to ask for more, but I just have this reflex of like, I feel bad telling you how much money you're about to spend for this. And at some point you're going to yell at me when I'm just trying to do what you want me to do. And so going back to what I said, I was going to say at the beginning of this live stream, but I think it was from the mistaken private live stream that I started before I redid this. But going back to this mantra that I've talked about here before, but like I'm always afraid to talk to clients. Like I'm always afraid that when they pick up the phone, they're going to be mad at me, and they almost never are. I think there's been one situation, but the way that I try to remind myself, and the thing that I've probably said here before, is that you're not something that's standing between your client and what they want, which is what I sort of imagined a lot of. They're trying to get this project done, and I'm an obstacle in their way. I'm keeping them from getting it done. But the truth is that I'm not between them and their thing. I'm behind them, pushing them toward their goal. And reminding myself of that is important. And I say that to other people, but I always forget it. And this is one of those situations where they're never going to be upset with me. And if the cost is way too high, they're just going to say, oh, that cost is way too high. What else can we do? And getting myself to that headspace of being comfortable with it has been tough. And so what I've decided to do is have a conversation with them later this week. We're talking, and I just wanted to share these feelings with them. As ridiculous as it is, I try to be authentic, and this seems like the best way to do it. But I'm gonna have a meeting with my client and just say, hey, historically, I haven't worked with anyone who has the virtually limitless budget that you have. And so every time we talk about these things, I sort of get this lump in my throat, and I'm trying to find ways to cut corners and keep the cost under like this theoretical or this arbitrary like $10,000 for this project. Like, where can we save some money? And that doesn't help anybody. It's stress for me. It would be a worse project for them, and they've got the money and they don't care. And I just need to tell them like, hey, as we do this, be a little patient with me. Understand that I'm doing my best, and I will never step out of line and jack up prices or try to pad these invoices in any way. Just know that what I'm asking for is fair. And I like with every one of these projects, if you haven't seen it before, when I bid a project, I have a spreadsheet that just says, how many camera operators, what I'm going to pay them, what I'm going to pay a location audio mixer, what I'm going to pay any of the, like how much the editing costs, how much the pre-production costs. You can see the whole thing. There's no surprise costs in it at all. And I share that with people. So there is no surprise of like, wait, where's this $10,000 going? Like, well, we're paying 2 camera operators, $1,800 a day. There's, a chunk of it. There's what, $7,200. Poof. That's how this goes. And there's no problem with it. But I build this obstacle in my head as though there is. And that's something that I need to come to terms with. And this is how I've decided the right way forward is for me, is to have this conversation with my client. And they may roll their eyes, but I don't want to keep going in this relationship without this understanding of where I am and how I'm changing and how I'm trying to cater to them to the best of my abilities. Huh. The end. Before I end the stream, I was thinking about like before I started this, and again, I started this wrong before this in a private live stream. That it's like, man, no one's logged on, and while I'm trying not to be egotistical, I'm like, somebody should have accidentally clicked on it by now, and I realized it was because no one could see it. But as I was preparing for this and thinking about what the topic could be, when I have these video topic ideas, which it's a fun exercise to have something to talk about it. It can be a challenge to come up with the right thing. And once I know what I want to talk about, to outline it in my head. And so with all of my videos, with the hundreds of videos that, I like all your comments. I'm going to get to them in a minute. The process of making these videos, and with the hundreds of videos that I've made before, sometimes, like 15, 20% of the time, I write out an outline on a note card, and then I end up doing the whole video to camera 3, 4, maybe 5 times. Sometimes I can get it in 2. Usually the first time I'm talking and I'm like, oh, I like the way that sounded, and then I try to remember that and use it again in the real take. And it's produced a handy skill where I'm comfortable talking on camera, where I feel like I can make these outlines in my head. I can follow my thoughts for the most part. And if I say I've got an A and a B, then I know in the middle of the A, I still got to go to my B, and I'm not going to just abandon these syntactical parts of our speech. But this past week, I just put up a video, excuse me, about my lights, my favorite lights. I've got my Quasar Rainbow Q25, my Quasar Rainbow Q50, my Quasar Double Rainbow 50, and my Hudson Spider Mosey. And I just made this whole video about these things. And it was the first video I've ever done that was completely scripted ahead of time, and I used a teleprompter. And hopefully that's not noticeable too much if you weren't told that just now. But it was interesting for me to do this and to think about the video and sort of do all those rehearsals off camera and write it out and think more thoughtfully about what I want to say, what I don't want to say, what is redundant. Because as much as like I said, I'll always go back to make sure I cover my bases and finish my thoughts, it is often at the expense of being quite redundant. But tonight was an exercise in, I want to talk about client relationships, the good and the bad, and how I dealt with one that I didn't feel like I could serve well, and one that I know I can serve amazingly. I just feel bad spending their money that they want to spend at the amount that they want to spend it. So if you are watching this and you don't yet have your own channel and you're talking about this, and if you're listening to anything I say and saying like, man, that guy, I feel somewhat similar to some of the things he's expressing, I'm begging you, start a channel, start a podcast, go to anchor.fm, free podcast hosting, do something, put these out there, because hearing me say it is one thing. And if it gave you any bit of comfort, knowing that you're not alone with this, awesome. But know that I want that too. And all these comments that say like, oh man, I feel the same way. I like, it's so cool that somebody's in any video that I've done, anyone who's like, yeah, this is how I feel. I want to know that. I want to watch these things too. I want to hear your experiences, how they differ from mine, and I want to learn from those. So if you're thinking like, hey, I wish that I had the confidence that this idiot in a hat has, then then you do have the confidence, and I would love for you to make some content and share it with me, and I'll share it out there, and we can make stuff together, and it'll be a really good time. That's all for tonight. Oh wait, there were a couple comments. Top chat, say hi, cancel. Where am I? Oh, there we go. Uh, Jay, you're a good man. You always do right to people. Thank you. And I try with my pricing. Uh, I have like in the budget that I mentioned amounts that I prefer to pay people, and I always like to ask someone's day rate because I think it's important for someone to ask for the right day rate, and I will always pay someone their day rate. Um, but there are times when people's day rates I just think are too low, knowing what I'm going to ask them to do. And so I already have in my budget what I'm going to pay them, and I will pay them accordingly. Um, but I like to offer them the moment of discomfort to have to, especially when I'm working with newer people, like, I don't know, is this out of line? And sometimes I get to have fun and be like, ooh, $300 a day. Uh, you found the right I found a way to find the right pricing. I'd love to talk to you about it. Um, I think the other cool thing about pricing, speaking of client relationships, when I first start talking to clients, I've made it a thing where like I have to know your budget before the first meeting, because I found that I've gotten into these meetings, like I said, where it's like, oh, we want this 45-minute documentary. This actually happened. Somebody wanted a 45-minute documentary about all the stuff that they were doing within the healthcare space. And it was like this national healthcare provider. I won't say who it was, but like a real company with real things and thousands of employees. And they wanted this thing, and we talked about, we're going to film with different doctors, we're going to film with patients, get testimonials at different locations. And at the end of it, they were like, we've got a budget of $2,500. I was like, are you out of your mind? Like that doesn't cover my day. That's insane. That just can't happen for that. You may find a nephew or a high school student who'd be happy to do that much work, but it's going to look like your nephew or a high school student shot it. Like, you can't shoot with good lights that many interviews for that amount of money. It just isn't going to work. But I tell you that to tell you this. The best relationships. So now I ask for the budget at the beginning of every meeting, and I won't have a meeting until we talk about the budget first. And when someone says, and I forgot who I stole this from, maybe Chris Doe. But when someone says like, oh, we don't have a budget yet, just say like, okay, is 50,000 okay? And then there's usually like a ha ha ha. It's like, no, we were thinking more like whatever. Get that number, because if it's lower than you want to make you excited about the work, that's going to be a problem. But also, as soon as you start to then talk about, like when they say we've got a budget of $6,000, you can start hearing about the project and saying like, okay, well, this really should be shot with 2 cameras over the course of 3 days. We can go to these different locations, and it's going to cost 12 grand. And that conversation in that meeting, before you've agreed to anything, you'll be able to tell, like, are these people willing to pay for the right project, or are they prioritizing the mistake, or are they prioritizing the budget and those limits? And either is fine, but you'll be able to know for yourself, do I want to work with somebody who maybe it's an exciting project, maybe it's something you're passionate about, you're willing to do the sacrifice, and you're welcome to do that. But for a lot of this stuff, if you can't make it work, and like here, they're already pushing back of like, we can't go to 3,500, we're going to keep it at 3,200. Those are the kind of projects that I've learned after 13 years to walk away from, and to say, I'm sorry, I don't think we're going to be a good fit, because I know that later on down the road, there's going to be some hiccup, and I promise you it's going to be their fault, that something extra is going to come up, and I'm going to say, yeah, we can do that, but we're going to have to increase the budget. And they're going to say, we can't increase the budget. It's just going to be an argument. So I love that my 2 clients right now that I've been working with never question my prices. My prices are fair. They know that. They trust me. They're not overpaying for anything. They're not underpaying for anything. I feel like we've nailed it right on. But a big part of that trust is those initial conversations. You can sniff that out to say, are these people going to be tedious to work with and tedious to extract money from for good work? Or are they going to say, we need to stay on that budget, and we just need to no, you can't bring lights. No, you can't bring an extra camera person. We just want your phone on a tripod. You'll be able to say like, yeah, I could come out with my phone on a tripod and shoot this for you, but I don't want to. That's not going to help my portfolio. That's not going to help my business grow. That's not going to get me the next client. Um, and so I forgot how I get into this, but I try to pay people fairly for the work that they do, and so much of that involves being transparent about my budget and working with people who trust that I'm going to pay my people fairly and pay myself fairly. And if I have a client meeting where they start to say like, "Oh, do you have to pay them that much?" or like, "I know people who work for less than that," that's a good opportunity for me to say, "That's fine." But that's not how we do work. And that's not how we get people excited about doing work. And when you can pay people what they ask or more, you create this environment that's more collaborative, that's more exciting, that's more creative, and the work is better. It's more rewarding. It's better for the client. It's a more exciting experience. And as a producer, being open to that collaboration is important, and advocating for yourself and your team is important. And once you put that out there with a foot down, being in the mindset of knowing you got to know you're okay without the client. Go into the meeting already deciding that you're not going to work with them, and then be won over at the expectations that they may bring you. You could be won over by a project, but if you approach something begging, I'm not talking about like negotiating tactics. I'm saying in your own head, you will be happier in these meetings and you will be happier with your career if you go in with your arms crossed a little bit, just inside your head, be presentable, be happy, be friendly, be yourself. But in your head, the whole time, be ready to say, yeah, this isn't going to be a good one for me. And through that, you will find the way to healthy client relationships, where you'll be able to pay healthy day rates to the people who do work with you, and you're going to be happier and you're going to have a better career. I think that's it. I don't know what else could be said. Dane remembers that client. Yeah. Uh, yeah. And No Flavor Imaging. I don't know who you are. Shoot me an email. Go to like my full name, all lowercase, no spaces.com, fill out a thing, or go to Boom Reactive. And yeah, if you're doing stuff in St. Louis, I'm trying to meet more people in St. Louis. My buddy Dane moved to Colorado, left me without a camera operator. So yeah, if you got folks, if you're around, please share the contact info. I'll probably try to message you through YouTube if I can, although they don't really have messaging anymore. That's all. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this. If you made it through live, I really appreciate it. And if you watched this later, even more so, I appreciate it. These unscripted, hey, I'm no pro, haha. I also wasn't a pro until I bothered Dane enough. I'll tell Dane, I'll get you dates. Really, I'm going to text you after this. We're locking up dates. I'm about to put my first dates out to the client for this thing we're shooting in May. And you're already on the list. Trust me. I think it's going to be you, me, and Jade again, hopefully. Or rather, you and Jade again, plus me this time. And Jay, we don't need any sound, sorry. But to No Flavor Imaging, whatever your name is, I wasn't a pro until I started bothering Dane, and Dane gave me a chance to shoot a Kickstarter video with somebody. And I'll tell that story sometime about how I ended up making the bed of a former employee of mine in a very, very weird day. It was February 6th, 2018, 17, 18, 18. And from that, my career absolutely blossomed. But it's all about taking chances and getting to know people and asking questions, being humble, and understanding that the people, again, your clients are rooting for you. When I hire people and when people hire me, non-client side, like on an agency side, when somebody hires me as a camera operator, it's important to remember that they want me to do well. And if you could be a part of a crew, and if you're open about your inexperience and what you want to get better at, what you want to be a part of, people are willing to work and find ways to build that up and add trustworthy people to their teams. I think everyone in these comments here, Jay, Dane, myself, anyone else who's come in or out, you'll see it's the same thing. So shoot me an email. Let's get acquainted, because there's work to do around here, and some of it's pretty fun. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. And I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but we'll talk about something. See you later. Bye. And that's that weird live part where I've stopped it, but it doesn't